This is Wandering Universe. Today, I'll be looking at another ancient monument further out from the Giza pyramids, the Obelisks of Egypt. So, let's go exploring. Here we are. As you can see, you know what it is. Didn't I say more? Next one. This obelisk is dedicated to Hatshepsut. What's interesting about this one is that it looks rough around the edges. Now, when I say that, it means that the sharp edge of this particular obelisk seems like it's been purposely chipped off for some reason. There's a lot of dents that have been chipped off over time. I'm not sure if that's to do with decay. It has to do with, weather, or the age of this particular obelisk, but it's very interesting that it's maintained itself very well, but I'm not sure why you see these cracks, you see these indentations, but we'll go on. Next one is another one. I think that's situated in Karnak. What I find interesting about this particular obelisk is that it's got inscriptions on each side of this particular pylon. Now, I'm not sure what the writing is descripting or saying, should I say, or what's its story. That would be interesting to find out. So, let's go on. Obelisk is a Greek word for spit. Now, I'm not meaning spit as in saliva spit, but think of a barbecue pork spit roasting on a skewer for a couple of hours. I know, hard to imagine. The person who named it as such was a Greek philosopher called Herodotus while trekking in Egypt, so blame it on him. The Egyptians call them tekhenu, which means to pierce. On what? Well, your guess is as good as mine. Here's another one. This is in the courtyard of Karnak, and there you can see 1 and 2 obelisks. I believe they are the only obelisks left in Egypt. I can't imagine why. These obelisks are made of red granite. They are rectangular shaped with a huge wide base at the bottom and thinning out all the way to the very top. I'll show you another example. This is what I mean. The reason why these pylons need to be heavy at the base is to prevent it from moving side to side, activities such as an earthquake. That way the base can stay stable and it doesn't topple over to one side like you can imagine the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So you'll know what I mean. There is an apex shape at the very top of these pillars, purposely made to fit some sort of device like a gold metal plating or copper metal plating right here. Very smooth on each side, and it's so precise, the tip, so precise. My guess would be as good as yours. It could be to do with that, but let's go on. They were created in the early dynastic period, which is 3150 to 2613 BCE. Believe it or not, soon after this period, not before, a certain people, possibly farmers, learnt a new skill called stone masonry, experimented with building mud brick mastaba tombs, learning how to craft its shape and design by sheer luck and trial and error. And before the making of the step pyramid of Djoser, the date suggested was 2670 BCE. Now, the Sphinx was built around 2500 BC. Question mark. The pyramids were built around between 2575 to 2465 BCE. Seems to me there's a bit of a discrepancy with the dates. There's a lot of assumptions there, and I have to disagree on some of the dates that these archaeologists and historians have put a date stamp on it. Something just doesn't add up. Show you what I mean. This is one of the smaller mastabas pyramids. Supposedly it's a tomb, funerary tomb. I disagree with that. If you look at the brickwork, very neatly stacked. You look at each step, very precise, and the sides. I know the sides look rough now, but like I said, that's to do with age and wear and tear of the centuries. However, if you look at it from another perspective, it looks very well done. So, I might be doing a video about this type of pyramid and the step pyramid later on. So, stay tuned. It is believed the earlier built obelisks were a training manual, like hiring trade apprentices, learn as you qualifies you to be a skilled labourer. So they believe, by working with stone that enabled them to get a fair idea on how to build the pyramids in Giza. Seriously. There seems to be a huge time gap between the early and middle kingdom. I mean, what took them so long? If they had the skill set knowledge to create a public infrastructure for the world to be in absolute awe, then those building projects would have been carried out long before their arrival to Egypt, don't you think? I'm talking about foreign nomads migrating to the arid region. Now I want you to think about this for a moment. How can it be possible that you can build these structures that you see in front of you out in the middle of a hot, blazing sun desert? 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, granted, 1 day off, Sunday, and then you're back to work Monday. For the next 20 years, 25, 30 years. It's as bad as paying your mortgage off, right? How can it be possible that they knew, us humans, knew how to build these structures ad hoc? Just, we stumbled across it. How can it be possible? Out in the middle of the desert. It's 99% sand. It's not stable. It dissolves. You can put water on it. It'll thicken up. It'll be a solid for a while. But as soon as it dries, it collapses into a heap. So, I don't think we built it. And I can tell. Any engineer will tell you. Any architect or construction worker will tell you. It is impossible to build these amazing structures using what's around it, the resources on this arid desert plain. It's just simply impossible. And where did they get all the wood? That's another question in a later video. So how can you build them in that climate? Seriously. But get this, early models of the obelisk no longer exist. How is it so? But later inscriptions suggest the earlier versions would have been 10 feet or 3 meters tall. Okay, so where's the blueprint? Where is it? Then out of the blue, like pulling a rabbit out of a magic hat, more of them appeared just like that in the arid plains, and some were measured to be up to 100 feet or 30 meters tall. Interestingly, from Assyrian to Mesoamerican cultures adopted the obelisk form, but Egypt is the only known country to have worked on monolithic stone. Show you an example. This is the black obelisk, Syrian style, and as you can see, they must have followed the Egyptian one to create their own, but the only difference is the apex. Theirs is a step apex, while the one in Egypt is a smooth pointed apex. Interesting. And each side looks like depicts a story. The way I see it looks like a film trailer. You know, one of those film trailers where you see, you know, terrible action-packed films like Fast and Furious. You see all this car action and you go, whoa, yeah, I got to check this out. And then by the time you actually go to the cinema, it's garbage. But anyway, that's just the way I see it. But when you think about it, it looks like it's depicting a film trailer. I'll show you another example. This is situated in the mountains of Ollantay Tambo. It's called the Six Walls Monolith. Now, it's very smooth. It's got knobs, as you can see here, and there's no writing, no inscription engraved on this wall. Why is it so? What gets me is that because it looks so precise, the way it's built, and this mountain range has an altitude of 3,000 meters, how is it possible that you can transport these massive megaliths or obelisks, I'll call them, that weigh 50 to 100 tons each all the way up to this mountain side? How is it possible? Well, I think later on I should do another video about it. The representation of these objects, I'm talking about the ones in Egypt, is dedicated towards the sun god Ra. Solar worship was a huge pastime in the New Kingdom from 1570 to 1069 BCE. Now, what's interesting to note is that these pylons symbolize day and night, sunrise at first light, and sunset at last light. The rays of sunlight touched the peaks of the apex to honor Ra. This type of ritual, God-pleasing and party-hard offerings went on to the Ptolemaic period, 323 to 30 BCE, but I'm going to put a question mark at the end of that for now. Just before Rome invaded Egypt and conquered it to its own liking. How unfortunate. Many kings adorned these structures and supposedly built an abundance of them in their honor, so to speak, believing they could party on in the afterlife. The current modern-day conventional theory is that these magnificent obelisks were cut and carved from a single block of red granite stone. Now, let me illustrate this. This is the unfinished obelisk at the Aswan Quarry. Huge, may I say. But I'll do another video. Actually, I'll do a video on this at a future date. Then it was, get this, put on a wooden sled and dragged the heavy thing all the way to its destination, miles and miles away near the banks of the Nile, and managed to raise it and slowly anchored it onto the stone base. Now have a good guess how far this quarry is to the Nile River. You want to have a good guess? I'll illustrate this. Now, you may not see it behind me, but you'll have a good idea. It's right here at the bottom edge, talking about right edge of the screen. There's the obelisk there. And here you go. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. I'm getting really tired, so hot. Can I rest here? Yes, you can, finally, 100 years later. It's really far away. Okay, by car, easy journey, right? To get there by car, you know, you're there in 15 minutes. But back then, on wooden sleds and slaves and ropes and a slave master whipping their back saying, pull, heave, all the way over to the edge of this Nile in the hot, blazing sun. I'm amazed those men haven't got sunburnt. You know, labouring away for 8 hours a day, almost 7 days a week. That's really harsh, don't you think? That's quite brutal work when you think about it. But how can it be possible that we could achieve that? From down here, this little quarry that's right behind me, all the way to here, how can it be possible that we could achieve that? And don't forget, the ride is not very smooth, okay? But wait, there's more. Archaeologists have mimicked these methods using ancient tools of the time and failed. They've even tried using modern tools and machinery to hoist it, raise and anchor it on the stone base, and they still failed. Show you what I mean. Yes, this is the modern day version of how they maneuvered the obelisks. What were they thinking? But one did make it work, and his name was Professor Maury Garib, an aeronautics whiz guy, experimented in 2001 with kites, a pulley system and a support frame using wind power and calculating leverage for the pulley system. It was raised and placed, guess what, in 25 seconds. Wow, now that is effort, don't you think? He used wind power, and he said, kites. What do kites represent these days? I think you can guess, can't you? I'm going to show you another illustration. This is raising an obelisk in Paris. You may have seen one there, somewhere in the centre of town. This was done in the late 1800s or early 1800s. And as you can see, they used wood, bricks, and steel. They look like steel frames and ropes to hoist, level, and anchor it onto the stone base right here. The story goes it took absolute difficulty to place it correctly and align it in the center of the stone base, and it took 300 men to do this arduous job, as you can see. Back in the ancient heyday of the Egyptian Empire, there were lots of obelisks that started from the Temple of Atman in Thebes in Upper Egypt, and then they stretched all the way over to Heliopolis in Lower Egypt. Now, what does that tell me? Something interesting the way it's been mapped out, these obelisks. And I'm going to look into that later on. But that's interesting. It's stretched from the upper region all the way to the lower region for a good reason. There's a reason behind that. Obelisks are far more than just mere objects of worship symbolism. That's how I see it. But that is very, very interesting to note that. These are different style of obelisks that have been transported on steamer. We're talking about a naval steamer, a steel naval steamer, all the way to these destinations. I think this is in Rome. I think that's in Paris. This one, I'm not sure where that's situated, and I know this is in Heliopolis. So the way they maneuvered them, each and every single one of them, there's one in New York, I think in Central Park. That was done in the late 1800s, but I can show you that in a later video. Once again, when they used modern construction methods back in the middle 1800s, remember we were going through a powerhouse industrial revolution, and there was a lot of steel making. They used cable ropes, and they were able to, build skyscrapers. Well, not skyscrapers, but stone buildings for its time. But I can imagine back then the way they placed it. I mean, they're very well placed when you think about it. It looks like that it took them a lot of difficulty. From what I see, if you look at the side sharp edge of each of the obelisks, including here, there seems to be some cable damage, some rope damage that may have chiseled off or cast off the side edge of the obelisk. And as you can see, that's the abrasion there. There might be a few abrasion marks from the ropes, unfortunately. Whoever crafted them knew exactly what they were doing, as they have done this type of building design many times. Yet there is still no blueprint or building plans found on any stone wall anywhere in Egypt. It's implausible that us humans planned these amazing stone pylons just for sideshow entertainment. Seriously. This video is just an overview before I dive into the juicy bits of this subject. I will be ploughing further, exploring more intriguing information on the types of tools that we use to craft them. If we make them today, what types of tools and machinery could recreate this ingenious wonder? And most importantly, I'll be exploring the big questions such as for what true purpose serve these obelisks and why. That's all for now.